welcome to Art 4. So these are the tutorials for this week, and what we're going to focus on, I thought it might be nice because we've all been away from school and our friends and people that we love for a little bit of time. I thought I might do a project that was really relaxing for you to have a go at this week, and these projects are sometimes called mindfulness. Now, some of you might have heard of that word before, but mindfulness just means paying full attention to something. It just means slowing down and just taking the time to really notice what you're doing. And it's the opposite of rushing. So it's one where you want to take your time, you're focusing just but in a relaxed and kind of an easy way. And I thought it might be nice so that you can kind of have a calm focus at the moment, because you might have been having lots of ideas chattering around in your mind and you might just want to quiet that down. And this can really help, because the ideas behind this is that it's simple shapes. You can see from both of the pictures, simple shapes, so you're not having to concentrate too hard in a technical way. These are almost like doodles. And I do doodle a lot, and I think probably a lot of you do doodle a lot as well. And doodling can be really fun, and it's just another way of relaxing your mind at this moment in time. And these will take you a little bit of time, okay? And that is fine. That's what I want you to do. I want you to take these slow. I don't want you to just rush through them, okay? The idea is that you can do a little bit, come back, do a little bit, come back. You don't need to finish these all in one go if you don't want to. If you do want to and you're enjoying the kind of relaxation that you get from doing these kind of work, then feel free to just go ahead and do them like I did, which was all at once. Okay, and I've said quite a bit through the video that I really enjoyed doing these projects just because I need to calm my mind down as well, because there's lots of things at the moment for us to think about, and that is good to think about things, but it's not good to necessarily think about things all the time, having things on your mind. So these two exercises, they produce fantastic pieces of work, as you can see at the end, but they're also there to help us relax and to stay calm throughout our time away from school. And I know that you'll be enjoying lots of time with your family over the weekend, and you might be even celebrating VE Day. So I hope that if you are doing something like that in your garden, then that would be a really nice weekend for you to have. So just fit these in as and when, but I hope you really enjoyed doing them. I definitely did, and it definitely calmed my mind down. So hopefully it will do the same for you. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so here are the things you're going to need for today's mindfulness art lesson. So you can see that here I have got these beautiful pens. I'm very excited to have these. They are brand new. They haven't been taken out of the packet yet, so I'm really excited to get using them. Now, you might not have ones that are exactly like mine, but I'm sure that lots of you will have lovely gel pens or something similar to mine. You just need some nice fine, any colour you like. We're going to use lots of different tones and stuff today. So if you've got a pack of pens, that would be great. If you don't have fine liners like I've got, you can do this with pencil crayons as well. Just choose some lovely bright colours. So you're going to need something like that. I've got a separate fine liner black pen, just a lovely fine nib, and you could use a black biro for that like we've done before. I've just got this one. It came with my lovely pens that I just ordered. I've got a Sharpie for one of the projects because we're going to do a little bit of black background to make these colours here really stand out when we do our mindfulness activities. I've got a nice sharp pencil because we're going to try and do lots of detail today and lots of fine work, which is why we need the fine pens rather than the broad ones. I've got a little rubber because it's always good to have one to hand just in case we make some mistakes. And then I've got a pair of scissors, and like I've mentioned to you before, mine are nice rounded edges there. They've got a round tip, so hopefully they're nice and safe. And you might have some similar ones that you can use. If you're uncertain about using the scissors, I'm sure you'll be fine, as we're only doing a little cut. You could always get a grown-up to help you if you felt like you needed to. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get on with the first project. I'm doing two today, as I mentioned before. So we're going to start off with the first one, which is the lovely spread of all the shapes and all the colours, and it's a really nice design. So I'm going to move all of these out of the way, and then I'll come back and we can get started with our first project. Okay, so just move those out of the way. So like each week, I tend to try to use things that you've got in your house. And so I'm just using printer paper, just like you will have probably at home, maybe in your dad's office or your mum's office or whatever. So you could use those, or maybe you've got a sketch pad of your own or a packet of paper yourself. So let's try to do our first stage. So what we're going to do is we are going to try to make our paper a square. So rather than it being a rectangle like it is now, we're going to change it into a square. And it's really easy to do. So I've got paper underneath here for when I do my Sharpie work. So I'm just going to take those out from underneath so that you can then see, and I'll put them back in a minute, as to what we're going to do to how to make this nice, easy square that'll be a really good base for both our drawings this time, maybe. You can choose. So I'm going to take one of the corners. I'm using this one here. Okay, and I'm going to fold across like so into kind of a triangle shape. And it doesn't need to be perfect, okay, it just needs to be rough, okay, and you're just going to press down. You don't need to press too hard because you don't want your paper to be too creased, but you need to just have it so that when you pick it up, you can cut down this line here. Okay, so just to do it again, just so you can see, I've got a nice crease down here. I use this bottom corner and I take it over like that and just press gently. Okay, so that's our first stage. Hopefully you've always been able to do that with me. So now what we need to do, we need to get rid of this part here. So I'm going to turn my paper around, okay, and this is where I folded like that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut along this line here as closely as I can. Okay, now if it helps, you could always do it with a pencil first or use a ruler, but I think you should be able to cut pretty much straight along. So I'm just following the edge of the paper and I'm just taking my time and just cutting close to the edge of that fold like so. So I've got this bit spare, which you could use to practice some little shapes and doodles. We might use that later. Okay, and then when you unfold your piece of paper instead and you smooth it out, instead of having a rectangle, you can see that we have got a square shape, and that's because we're going to do circles today, and they look really good on the square paper. Okay, so it doesn't need to be perfect because you can always trim it afterwards, or you could ask mum or dad to make sure that these edges are perfectly straight once you're done. Okay, so don't worry about that. I'm going to turn mine over and just smooth out that crease because I don't really want that to distract from the drawing that we're going to do. Okay, so once we've got our square piece of paper and you're happy with it, okay, you can always give it a little roll if you want to make it flat, but it should be fine. Okay, so just smooth it all out. Okay, like so. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with a pencil and we're going to start with drawing two circles. Now you might at home have something that you could draw around. So you might have a tin, you might have a Pritt stick, you might have a coffee cup. When you see how big it is, you'll be able to maybe have a little go and see. Okay, I'm going to do them freehand and you can do them freehand too. They don't need to be perfect because remember, this video is all about being relaxed and calm and just thinking about what we're doing and not worrying too much about different shapes and things like that. We're just letting our minds kind of go how they want to go. So what we're going to do, we're just going to look at about the middle, and I'm just going to put a little dot just in the center just so I know roughly where I'm working. And then my first circle is going to be about this wide. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top here and I am just going to draw a circle like so, just around like that. Now it won't be perfect, so you know, if you make a little error, that's what we've got our rubber for. So you can just edit and it will look circular. And remember, it doesn't need to be perfect. This is part of the idea. It's a doodle, isn't it? So it doesn't matter if it's not exact, but if you use something to draw around, then it will be as circular as you can get it, I would think. So that's our first circle. That's going to be our center point, and we're going to have little lines coming in towards this center point with little stars, spirals, hearts and things on it. So you want to leave enough room in this center to be able to do those lines. So you could make this slightly smaller if you wanted to, okay, but you don't have to. So roughly about the size I've got it. And then you're going to repeat the same thing by following the outline of your first circle you're just going to go around with your second circle. And again, you know, you just take your time, because this bit's the kind of the bit that gets everything started. So just take your time and do it a bit at a time. Okay, so that end is looking a little straight. So all you want to do is just rub it out and just make it curve a little bit more. So we like the editing process. And although this is a doodle, we want it to be, you know, something that we could maybe have on our walls or something like that, because it's a really nice project. So just work so you're happy with the size of your circle and their shape. Okay, and if you've got your two objects, you can see that one needs to be slightly bigger than the other, and that will help you with your drawing starting point. Okay, so after that, it's quite free, really. You can do what you want. So we're going to just be able to think about different shapes that we're going to use, and we're going to add those into the drawing. So this section here between the two lines, okay, what we're going to do is we're actually going to put some little rectangles, some little squares, and they're all going to circle around, and it's going to make a lovely focal point for our drawing. And then we're going to add the beautiful strands that go out. And I was thinking that maybe we could try and do 100, because I know a lot of you have been doing 100 things for Captain Tom. So you might want to think about doing 100 lines. We will see if we can do that. Anyway, so this section here, this is where we're going to work for now. And all you're going to do is you're just going to divide up your circle. Now, it doesn't have to be exact. Can you see how I'm just placing the lines kind of randomly? I'm not worrying about whether they're close together or far apart at this point. I'm just going to place a few lines, and you'll see why as we go along. So I might place another one in there just to make it slightly shorter. So you can see I've got some different areas, different ones, sections, and so forth. So you can just add them until you feel happy. I might put another one in close to that one and another one there. Okay, so you can see it can be exactly how you want it. So put the vertical lines in first, or kind of the ones that are flowing outwards towards the edge of the circle. And then we're going to put in the horizontal lines, okay? So you're just going to split your boxes or your sections into different sections. So you can see that I'm just building it up, and I'm not using the whole block. I'm just putting them in sections, okay? And you want to have some rectangles or some squares in each section of your drawing, okay? So I've got 2 on that one. So it's almost like bricks, but not quite, isn't it? So I'm going to split this one a little bit more complicatedly. So I've got 3 in that section and another one there. And I'm going to maybe do a square on this one and a square there and maybe a rectangle here. And you're just going to build this pattern up as you go around so that they're all different. And you don't need to worry about them matching or being the same. They want to be slightly different to each other. So I'm not repeating the pattern. I'm just putting my lines in, but they're all flowing around the circle. So there's no diagonal lines going across like that. So you want to try and get them to be straight across rather than diagonally. So you can put little squares in like I've done there. I might do a little square in there. And this is the bit where you can edit. And you can just do this bit really quietly. It's quite relaxing. I know that I'm talking, but if you do it when you do it, you can do it really quietly. You can just see me adding little details, and you can just add the little details that you want to put in on each one so that they're slightly different and that each one is kind of going to be a little bit unique. So I'm coming up to my last sections at this point. So I'm going to split that one like that. I've got 2 more to go, so maybe just a line along there, and I might do some narrow ones on this one, like so. And my last one, I'm going to put in a square, and I'm going to put in a line like so. So you could be working on that just a few minutes. It doesn't take very long, and that's going to become the basis of our lines that are going to go out into our page, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to show you just a little section, and then I'll speed up the video so you can see me drawing the whole thing. And when you get the hang of it, you might just want to go straight in with pen, which is fine, okay? I'm going to do the first section in pencil, and then I'll go over this, and then we'll speed up the video so you can follow along. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding those lines that are going to go across. And it's easy to follow through the dot if you want, but the lines can be random. All you need to remember is you need to make the lines different lengths. Okay, so I'm just going to put them in roughly. So I'm going to start with one here and one here. And you don't have to make them symmetrical. It's just an easy way to start. I'm going to make that one slightly longer and this one slightly longer. And again, they don't need to be perfectly straight because we're going to add in lots of squares and detail around the edge as we go. Okay, so I've got 4 lines in place at the moment, and then all you're going to do is you're just going to keep adding your little lines. Okay, so try and make them, and you could do these with a ruler if it makes you feel more comfortable to do so. Okay, I'm just doing them freehand, and I think with doodling, that's really the best way, because you just want your mind to kind of be engaged and just relaxed and thinking about what you're doing, and extending those lines right out, and just leave enough space at the edge here just so you can fit in your little shapes, your spirals, or your little shapes that you're going to put in the end. And you can see I'm making them quite close together. Okay, and I'm just keeping going. I'm going to make a short one there, one that's a bit longer, and I might fit just one more in like that. So it's not quite the same length as this one, and it's slightly shorter than that. So you can see it's almost like a little sunburst effect. And you can always edit the length of these lines as you go. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so if I put in a few more, I could make this section have 25 lines, couldn't I? And then you could have 25 here, 25 here, and 25 here. And we know that half of 100 is 50, so if you had 50 lines on this side, and then a quarter of 100 would be 25. So you could do 25 here, 25 here, 25 here, and 25 here, and you could do your lines for your 100 Things Challenge if you wanted to, because I know a lot of schools have been doing it. Okay, so I could add some more in. It's very easy to do. So that would be 19, 20, 21. I'm going to put another one in here. 22, 23, 24 in there would go, wouldn't it? So I'm going to pop that in there, and maybe 25. Okay, so you can see that I've just added a few more, and you want them to be quite close together, to be honest, okay, because the shapes are going to be put on the end. Okay, so because I'm drawing it in pencil, I will go over it all in fine liner so you can see, but then I'll do the whole thing in fine liner, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do with the colouring. So at this point, what you can do is then you can start adding your little shapes to the end of your lines. Now they can be shapes like hearts, or they could be a little spiral, they could be a little leaf shape. Okay, and the idea with these is that you just use your imagination, really. Okay, it's totally up to you, but they're doodles. They're not, you're not worrying about making a perfect shape. Okay, it's just letting your mind relax. So I'm doing a little star there, and I might do another kind of spirally one like this. I might put a little point on the end of that one, so you can see you can make them as ornate or as simple as you like. So that one, I'm just going to put a little circle on there because I haven't got that much room on this one. Okay, on this one I might do a little diamond shape, and I could always put something in the middle of that when I get the hang of it. On this one I might do 2 circles, so they're linking. Okay, so you can see the effect that we're starting to create as we go around, and you can make them all different, or you could have a repeating pattern if that was something you wanted to do. I think that was my computer beeping if you heard that, sorry. So you can just build up your pattern as you go around. So you could do an upside down heart. Okay, I think you're going to get the idea here. Okay, so once you've got the ends of your little doodle sorted, then you can add in some little extra details on the lines going down. So on this one, I might put in 2 little circles, or 3. On this one, I might miss. I might put another little circle in there. On this one, I might give it a little square. And you don't have to do it on each one. You can just do it on certain ones. So this one with the circles, it might be nice to have the circles coming all the way in because it's a long line that I've got. On these ones, it's slightly shorter, but I could do a little spiral coming off. Okay, so the idea is that you build up the detail on the lines, and you don't want to build it up too much so it's really cluttered, because you'll have seen by my finished one that the designs are actually quite simple, even though we're making them quite intricate. Okay, so it works both ways. You don't want them to be too complicated, but the little patterns are kind of intricate. So on this middle one, if you wanted to, I'm going to show you this one because it's a nice space. So if you want to change the line, once you've drawn it, and put some little spirals or little loops into your line, then you can do that. Okay, so it's literally up to you what your little doodles are going to be, and you might have some shapes that you draw over and over again. I know that I do that. So those are the kind of things that you want to include. And then towards the base, you're going to repeat these little square patterns. So we're going to do some little horizontal lines in there. And again, we're not going to necessarily put them on each one, okay, but they're going to go between the two lines. So I might miss one there, and I might put one there. I might miss a couple there, and I've got this busy one here, so I'm not going to use that one. So I might use this one instead, and just put in some little lines going up. And what you'll see is when I start to build up the drawing, I'll add in those lines probably towards the end. And then I'll come back to it, and this part will be coloured, this part will be coloured. We're going to leave some of it white, and it'll be really striking on this background. So once you've got started with your kind of design, and it doesn't take too long once you've actually got this central circle done, okay. Oh, you need to put the bits in the middle. Sorry, I forgot to do that bit. So the same applies to the middle. Okay, so lots of little lines coming in, and again, you can make them different lengths, and it's quite easy to do. You don't need to worry too much about fitting lots in. They don't have to match the ones on the outside. Okay, I know that some people might want them to, but they probably won't, because you're going to fit less in, because it's a slightly smaller circle on the inside, isn't it, than on the outside. So you can see that I'm just making the lines of different lengths, and some of them are coming nicely into the center, others are staying close to the edge, and they turn around, and you want them all to be trying to point towards that central dot if you can. Okay, and remember, you can always edit that process. So you've got these lovely lines in the center, and then the same thing, you can add in little spirals to each one, a little heart on each one. You could do a little kind of triangle shape on this one. Okay, and you don't want too many of the big shapes, but maybe just on the long lines. Okay, you could add in some kind of larger designs that you like. I might do a leaf shape on that one because I quite like those, or a little feather shape. I might do a little star on this one. Okay, so you can see how we're building up, and I'm not putting too many in because I don't want to spoil it. I might just get maybe one more on here. I might do a little spiral like that with a little arrow on the end, and maybe just one more here. So I might just do a simple circle there. So we don't want too many shapes in. And then on the end of each line, you're going to do a little kind of dot at the top. Okay, and that finishes those spare lines, but kind of keeps them in keeping with the rest of our artwork. Okay, so you can just add those in as you go. And it's really nice doing this. I tend to doodle a lot, especially when I'm thinking, because it gives me time to kind of process ideas that I'm having or feelings that I'm thinking about, and it's a good thing to do. It lets you relax, which is good, because you're not really having to concentrate really hard like you might have had to do with the sloth or the dragon. This is just much more free. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to transfer to my fine liner black pen, and I said that you could use a black biro for this. That would be absolutely fine, and the only thing that you need to be aware of with the fine liner pens is you might want to put some paper underneath. I'm going to, so you're going to lose this square because it'll be on white paper, and that's really just because the fine liner, I've noticed in the past, works really nicely when you've got something to rest on. So if you've got like a padded tablecloth, you know, some of those plastic tablecloths are nice for that, then that would be fine. But I'm going to put some paper underneath, and then it makes my fine liner run nice and smoothly. And the only thing I would say is try not to smudge it. Just do it line by line, carefully by carefully, and you're just going to outline everything. And what you'll see is when I do the drawing that I'll build up so that we've got the lines going all the way around, and we've got the little end parts on, and then I'll bring you back. I'll show you quickly how to colour, okay, and then you can then see me speed up and I'll colour all the way through like I would normally. And hopefully you'll be able to have produced a really nice, fun kind of doodly mindfulness project. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll stop the video and then I'm going to speed it up so that you can see me drawing, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I hope they're looking really good so far. Okay, so you can see that my drawing is now complete. I have spent a good while drawing this and it was lovely. I have to say, I did it very, very quietly because I have to video with the sound off anyway, and it was really nice just taking the time and just drawing, relaxing my mind and just easing into the drawing. It was lovely. It was really good fun. So I hope that when you do yours that you'll have a similar feeling to what I had when I was doing mine. And you can see that I have added lots of little details on each of the stems, not all of them, but quite a few of them. I've done some little spirally stems here. I've done different patterns on each end, and you can have a think about what you're going to include. I think I've included most of them. I'm just checking to make sure. I'm going to put some little bits of detail on this one as I feel it's a little bit sparse, so you can do that as well. So once you got it to this stage, you can see which ones you think, okay, I might just add, you know, a little few dots onto that one. It doesn't take long to do that. And just the little patterns, so I've used leaves, I've used spirals, you can see what I've used, which is really good. Okay, so now that you've got it to this stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that you get your gel pens out, or your fine liners that you're using, or your pencil crayons that you're using. So these are mine. Okay, they're really nice with Stablo, very nice Stablo. So here we go, they're being opened for the very first time. Look at all those beautiful colours. They are very fancy, and I'm rather excited to get started. So I've got some neon shades over this side, which, ooh, they're going to look super. I'm really liking these shades here. These are some of my favourites, and these shades here also. So you pick your favourite colours, basically. It's going to be totally up to you how you want to colour these in. So I'm going to take a nice neon yellow and a nice neon pink and green, and then I've got some, you know, really bright ones there. I'm going to take some little shades of these greens and blues on this side. I'm definitely taking those three there, which are the purples, the lilacs, and that nice fuchsia pink that I like. And I'm going to probably include some of these here too, probably a red, and a yellow, and maybe a couple of different shades of green. So I've got a really nice mixture of colours there. Now what you'll see is that actually I've got some colours left. Now they're the colours that I'm not that keen on. So I basically picked my palette there. Okay, so that's the colours that I'm going to be using. I might include that blue there because I quite like that one as well because it might be bright. Okay, so you can see that they're not in any particular order, but these are the ones I've got left. I'm going to put those to one side. Now, if your colour choices aren't the same as mine, it doesn't matter. You might have some favourite gel pens that you really like to use. You know, they might have glitter in them. I know that a lot of people do. I know that some people have scented ones. I can also see this working really, really well with pencil crayons. Okay, just press really hard to make sure that the colours are really bright and it will work beautifully. Now, you could, as I say, do this with normal felt tips. You just need to be careful when you're doing it. I'm going to move my pens out of the way just so you can see. Okay, because it's this bit here that I just want to show you, and then you can get going, okay, with it, and you can design your own kind of doodling mandala. Now, mandala is something that spiritual people use to focus their concentration, and you might have done those in school when you've been studying different types of art. Okay, so we're going to start with this ring here. Remember, we put in all of those straight lines, and I said we were going to come back to them and we were going to colour them different colours. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're just going to go in using our lovely, ooh, these are delightful. I'm very happy with these. Okay, so using your lovely pens of choice. I'm using this lovely blue. This was my first choice, but I'm using that one because, well, I like it. It's probably one of my very favourite colours, and I thought it would look really good. And as you can see, I'm just choosing certain sections to colour in. I'm not colouring all the sections, and I'm not going back and forth across my table to get all my different coloured pens. I'm just going to do some sections blue, and we want it to be random. Okay, so it doesn't need to be necessarily a pattern unless you want it to. So I'm going to go for this pink now because I also like this one and I think it'll look really effective. Okay, so you can see how I am building up, okay, little areas of colour in each section. And you're just going to work along. Mine are actually super fine nib, okay, which is exactly what I wanted. I was very lucky. I got bought these as a present, so I'm excited to be using them. And you can see that the pink is looking really good against the blue already. Now, I'm not going to put it in all of the sections, okay? I'm just putting in a little bit as I go. I'm going to go for this nice purple now. And the idea is that we don't want to actually colour all of the sections in each box. Oh, sorry, each segment of the circle. We don't want to colour in every single box. So we just want to put in a few little sections. So we're not going to colour the whole thing. So we want some of these inner ring pieces to be left white so that they're not going to be completely coloured in. Okay, and you'll see what I mean as I build it up. Okay, so you can just use whatever colours suit your mood and how you're feeling, because often, you know, how you're feeling on day to day can change which colour choices you might use, and that's okay because it makes the piece really personal to you at the end of the experience. Okay, so you just go with what you feel you would like to use. So I've added a little bit of purple in there, and I'm making some of those sections a little bit smaller if I want. Okay, so my purple's in there. I'm going to use a little bit of green. Okay, so you can see how I'm building up my sections so that they work together, and I'm thinking about the colour choices that I'm choosing for this one, especially because the colours are close together. So on these ones at the end, it doesn't really matter what colours you use for these ones, but these ones that are close together at the bottom here, you know, it's nice to have ones that work together. So you can see that the blue and the green work really nicely against this pink, and this green is lively against the purple. So have a little think about the kind of colour choices you're making, but again, it wants to be in your favourite colour palette. Okay, so it doesn't have to be exactly like mine. In fact, I want them to be completely different from mine, really. So, you know, you could make yours all reds and yellows and green, reds, yellows and oranges if you wanted. You could do it all different shades of purple if you wanted. You could do all different shades of pink if you wanted. Okay, you can do whatever you want, really. It's just up to you. So you're just building these colours up. Ooh, That's very nice. That's a bit like one of my school's after school club's uniform colours, isn't it? I'm sure you'll know who you are if teal is your uniform colour. Very nice. Okay, so I'm just adding these little sections of colour, and I'm just colouring neatly. I'm taking my time. Okay, and I'm getting to the point now where you'll be able to see that I could start missing some sections out. Okay, to leave a little bit of white around the edge, but not too much. Okay, so it's just a case of balance, and that's what doodling is all about, to be honest. It's balance and knowing when to finish and knowing when you're kind of ready to stop because you feel like you want to, or you feel like that your piece is working really well. So here I might add, and you can do that. So, you know, here I'm thinking that this bit might not want to be all teal, but I might want to put a little bit in there. So can you see how I just added those little details in there? And I can do that on that one as well. And if you can remember, you can outline them in black, but if you don't, it doesn't matter. Okay, and I might put a little section in there. And you can see, so I'm editing almost as I go. So you can put in little, you know, little extra details, little bits to fill in. Okay, if you feel that you haven't got quite enough squares in there. And until you get started with the colouring, to be honest, you don't always know how your piece is going to look. So that's the idea, that you use your, you know, creativity and your imagination to fill in. You can tell that I like teal. My kitchen's actually this colour, so it's definitely one of my favourites. So I'm just adding in little sections, and I'm definitely leaving some sections white. So I think the last bit to work on is maybe this section here, where I'm actually going to add in a little extra detail on there, because that white section was quite big, and again here because it's a little large. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of teal in there, but I'm also going to put a little bit of pink in there because that one feels like it needs a little bit of something. Okay, so I'm just going to get my pink that I used before, and I'm going to keep within the same palette, but I'm going to just brighten that up. So can you see how that addition of that little bit of pink just made the whole thing work really well? And I'm going to put one there as well. And so that's just up to you, you know, how you feel your little middle section, how you want it to look. So that's the colours I've gone for. I'm liking it already. So then what I'm going to do is, on the ones where you have drawn the little horizontal lines across, okay, basically you're just going to repeat the process. So you're just going to colour in between the two black lines that you've drawn your horizontal ones between. Okay, and you can colour them all if you want. So it's one block of colour. Okay, and again I'm just using my pink. I'm putting some on the ones I feel like putting them on. Okay, so you can see I'm being a little bit sporadic with it. I'll use a different shade of blue this time. I'm just coming back in, and I'm really liking this colour palette I've chosen. Haven't started to use the neon ones yet. I'm actually looking forward to using those on the ends. But actually I kind of felt like I wanted my central piece to be these blues and pinks and greens that work so well together. So you can see how I'm building the colours, and you can go right down to this central ring. Okay, so you can take it all the way down to the bottom if you want to, so it ties in with that little link. But I think you're getting the idea of how I'm building the colour up, and I'm just working with my imagination really. I'm just doing it as I feel I want to. I'm putting a little bit of each colour here and there, and you can see that it's starting to build into that lovely image that you saw at the start of the video. Okay, so to complete the kind of the spiral effect, what we want to do is we want to use some neon. Okay, we're going to use some really bright ones, okay, on the outside. So that's very fluorescent. I'm hoping you can see how nice that one is on the top there. Okay, so you can just colour those in. So I'm going to do a little bit of neon yellow. I might do an actual yellow here as well. I might do this one like a rainbow, in fact. So maybe I'll do a little bit of, or maybe like a fiery red and yellow I'm going to do. Okay, this is the point. You can just mix and match your own ideas and your own preferences for colours, shapes, all of these kind of things. So you could colour in your little shapes at the end. You can leave the ones with the arrows. They will look absolutely fine with just the black line, so you don't need to worry about colouring those. But as you can see, I'm just kind of building up my colours on the outside, and at the end of it I think it's going to look really fab because of all the bright colours going around the outside, and it is quite relaxing doing this, I have to say, because I'm not worrying about getting, you know, things right all the time. Sometimes you have to do that, you know, when you're doing something more complicated like the dragon or the sloth. You can sometimes get yourself a little, oh, what, I must do it right. Well, this is just a nice one where you can just explore what you like and the colours you like and things like that. So I think that is probably giving you a good idea of how the artwork's going to look. So what I'll do is I'm going to use my pens. I'll film it and I'll speed it up so that you can see what I'm doing. Then I'll come back to you when it's finished. So I hope that you take your time over this. That's the idea. You're not going to rush it. You're just taking the chance to have a little bit of time out and to relax your mind a bit and think about things you want to think about, or not think about things you don't want to think about. Okay, so it's just a nice, peaceful, quiet activity really that kind of can help with us all being off school and things. Okay, so I'll pause the video, I'll speed it up, and then you can watch and you can see the finished piece. Well done. I think that mine's looking great, so I hope yours are too. I'm sure they're very creative. So as you can see, I have completed my beautiful doodle mandala, and I've used lots of different colours, lots of different patterns, and again, like I said before, when I was drawing it, I actually really enjoyed colouring it. I just took my time, and you can see that the video is speeded up, but it did take me a little while, and I just had fun using the colours that I wanted. The choices were in my head as I went along. I just made it up as I felt I wanted it to go. So I hope that you've been able to create something really lovely just from a few doodles and a few shapes. And I think that if you complete it really like neatly, and you can come back to this, you can work on it a little bit and then come back. You could do the drawing one day and then come back to the colouring. It doesn't all need to be done all at once. It can just be done over a period of time. You could even take a week to do it, you know, just keep coming back to it when you feel like it. Okay, it's not a high pressure one, it's just a fun one really that's helping you, hopefully going to help you just relax a bit and chill out when we're all off school and thinking about other things. So hopefully you've been able to follow along, and I think actually if you put this in a frame, it would look really cool on, like, you know, your bedroom wall or an office wall. Sometimes mums and dads are putting things up on their office walls. They often tell me that. So if you do one of these, I would really love to see them, because although they look simple, it's actually kind of a detailed process in a way, but simple shapes and simple colours, that kind of thing. No blending or anything required, just a really nice, relaxing activity. So I'm glad that you've been able to follow along. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the stuff set up for the next task that we're going to do, and that's going to be a similar thing where you'll need a square piece of paper, so you can just do it the same way, and I'll show you that as we get started. Okay, well done, fantastic. If you'd like to send them to me, I would love to see them. Thank you. Okay, so these are the things you're going to need for the second mindfulness activity that we're going to do today. So you can see that I've got a rainbow set of pens over here, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, a dark blue, and a violet, or an indigo and a violet. And over this side I've got some of the colours, because obviously you can do whatever colours you like. I might try the rainbow ones, but we'll just see how I feel, and that's the idea. You can just do it however you like. You're going to need a Sharpie for the background. It's not too much Sharpie, and as I've said before, just make sure you have something to rest on, because you don't want to get it on the table or anything like that. You're going to need a little pair of scissors, which you've probably got from the previous activity, or if you're doing this on a different day, which you might well be doing, just make sure you've got a little pair of scissors, because we're going to cut the paper into a square, like I said before. A rubber, you might need it, you might not, but you just have one to hand just in case. And I've got myself a really nice sharp pencil as well, just so we can get going straight away. Okay, so I'm just going to move these all out of the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly what we did for the previous video. And if you're just doing this one and you didn't want to do the other one, that's fine. They're making a bit of noise, sorry. And we're going to just cut the paper into a square like we did before. So I'll move my paper from underneath so you can just see a little bit more clearly when I'm folding. So it's exactly the same. You start with the bottom corner down here, having your paper landscape, and you're just going to turn it across to make a triangle like so. And like I said, you don't need to press too hard, it's just a little guide, and then we'll unfold that. So that's the shape you should have, like that. And just like we did before, and if you're doing it for the first time, we're just going to turn this around so that the triangle edge is pointing this way, because it makes it easier to cut. There's your fold, like that, so just check. And then what we're going to do, we're going to cut along this line. And I said before, it doesn't need to be perfectly straight, because you can always trim this, or you can get a grown-up to help you trim it if you want when you're done. So I'm just going to use the folded side as the guide, and I'm just going to cut along, just taking my time, and hopefully you've got some nice round-edged scissors or round-tip scissors to help you to make it nice and safe for you to do so. And then you're left with a little bit of spare paper, which I said before we might use for something else in a minute. Okay, so once we've got our paper as a square, we can just turn it over and flatten it out, just so you're working on a nice flat surface. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to create bubbles or circles. Now, you don't have to do circles if you don't want to. You could do paint splats, you could do geometric shapes, you could do triangles, circles, squares, diamonds. You can do really whatever kind of shapes you like. You could do abstract shapes if you want. I'm doing circles because I really like circles. It's quite a big feature in my artwork, as some of you know. So I'm going to do it with circles, but you can do it with whatever shapes you like. The only thing that you need to remember is you want to make the circles quite big so you don't have too much colouring with the Sharpie to do at the end. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper that I had before, because obviously I don't want my Sharpie to go through, and I'm just putting the square of paper just on my paper, okay, so that you might not be able to see it as well, but obviously it ends about here, and you'll just have your square, so you should be fine, okay? So what you might need and you might find useful, and I'm going to put a link to this on the video, so you might want a mum and dad to help you, or you might be able to follow the link yourself, and it'll just take you to my website, and you might find this sheet, or you will find this sheet there. And all this is it's just to help you a little bit with the kinds of patterns that we might put inside our shapes to create those really cool bubbles that you saw at the start of the video. Now, I think that a lot of you that have been to my clubs might be familiar with this sheet, because we used it when we did those fantastic scraper board artworks. And if you haven't done one of those, that's fine, because the patterns are kind of similar. We didn't use all of them, but you might recognise those kind of patterns from that. And if you've done one before, you might have a good idea of the kind of patterns you might want to include that you enjoyed doing. Okay, so that's the link to that. I'll move that out of the way, and then I'm just going to put it to one side just to help me to have some inspiration, because even I need some inspiration at some points. Okay, so just make sure your paper is nice and flat again. Okay, and remember we're working on the square, so it's slightly smaller, but I think if you wanted to put it in a frame at the end, it would look really good. And this is quite straightforward, okay? You're not going to worry too much. You're just going to go straight in with your shapes, Okay, and what you want to do is you want to try and fill the space so that there's not that many gaps. Okay, so I'm just going to do them randomly. I'm not worrying about really where I'm putting them, but what you will see is that I'm pressing quite hard so I can see the edges, and you can see with my circles that I am making them different sizes. Okay, now if you're putting in different shapes, okay, it's just totally up to you. I doodle a lot with circles, okay, and that's basically what this is. It's kind of like a doodle. So you're just going to add in all the circles or all of your shapes, and then what we're going to do is we're going to colour in between those shapes. So it doesn't matter if they overlap a little bit, that's actually fine, okay, because you can go over those with your Sharpie, and you can see that I'm just building up the circles, just putting them in different sizes. Some are large, some are small, and I'm going in little different directions as well. So there you can see I've left a bigger gap, and that's fine. They don't all need to be really, really tight. Okay, so they can be looser, and if you think you want to leave some more of a black area, then you can do that as well. Okay, so it doesn't all have to be coloured, and if some of them go off the square, that's absolutely fine. That can add to the effect as well. Okay, so there'll be a big black section in there. Okay, and I'm just going to build it up as I go. And circles are quite easy to draw. They don't need to be perfect circles either. Okay, because that just adds to the kind of creative moment that we're trying to make here. And this should be quite relaxing for you to do because it's just repetitive, and you're not trying to make necessarily any kind of pattern here. But if you wanted to do a lovely radial pattern, you know, where your circles or your shapes go in a particular way, you can have a try at doing that. Okay, so I'm gonna just add in some more. I might do a really large one here. Okay, so just keep going, and we're going to think about filling these shapes, whatever shapes you've chosen. We're going to think about filling those shortly with our doodles. So, you know, you might well have some doodles that you already do, because I think most people doodle. You might even be able to ask your mum or your dad or your brother or your sister if they do a doodle that they could show you, because I think lots of people do it when they're talking on the phone or when they're in meetings and things sometimes, and they're trying to think, because that's the idea of mindfulness kind of doodles. They allow you to think, but you can still listen to what's taking place around you. So some people do that. I definitely do. So I'm just adding these in, just building up the shapes. And it looks like quite a lot, but this is obviously the most complicated section. Okay, so just take your time, no rush with doing this. And this is a really nice project because you can actually come back to this quite easily. So that's maybe what you might like to do, to be honest. You might decide that actually, you know, this is a project that I'm going to find quite engaging, and I only need to do it maybe, you know, for half an hour at a time. You might not finish in half an hour, okay, but you can come back to it. And that's the idea with mindfulness, because we're trying to make sure that our minds are quiet. And this is a good exercise for doing that. And it doesn't take too long. I'm doing this in real time, you know, so we're not speeding up the video yet, and I'm just filling the space. And so when you come to do the Sharpie in a minute, which I will probably speed up for you to see, you're only going to be colouring these little gaps, so it's not going to be a lot. And we're going to do the Sharpie first before we add the colour, because then it's easier and we don't have to be as neat with our doodles or our colouring. We're just going to try and fill the spaces. So you can see how I'm starting to build up, and I'm starting to just see where maybe the little gaps are that I might want to fill with some smaller circles. So maybe just over here, and you can do that as well as you go on. And it's kind of looking a bit like the inside of an aero bar at the moment, isn't it? Which is quite nice. Okay, so I'm just going to finish this corner. And like I say, if you want to go off the edge, so I might do a large one going off the edge there. Okay, you can do. And we're just going to fill those gaps, and then, as I say, we're going to colour with the Sharpie just around the background area, and then we'll be able to fill the circles with the colours and the doodles. And what you need to remember when you're doing your doodles is you're going to make them quite tight, and you just want to think about the colours you're using, really. And like I said before, you can use your gel pens, your glittery gel pens if you've got them, because I know some of you have those. or you can just use pencil crayons to do this. Okay, so either will work. And you don't have to do all of them as a doodle if you don't want to. You could just colour them, you know, and the effect would be similar. So we have got a really nice shape and set of circles there. Okay, now you might have done different shapes, and that's absolutely fine. Okay, so whatever you want to do, you can. So once you've got it looking like that, then you're going to use your Sharpie. Okay, and there's a quick way of doing it. You basically just go around everything again, but you don't need to be as neat because obviously you're going to colour. So if I do this little section here, I'm just quickly outlining the circles, and then I'm just going to literally colour in between, and it will produce a really nice kind of effect, like the bubbles or the circle shapes are kind of coming out from this fantastic black background. Okay, so you're just going to colour around like so. Okay, like that. Now you might want to outline all of the bubbles first. That's up to you. If you've got a little bit, you know, a line there that you haven't quite got, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it, because you can just rub it out at the end. Or you can, you know, do a little section like I'm doing, then move on to do a next section and so forth. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video, and then I'll just start to finish it, and then you can see it completed and the video will speed up. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to see and follow along, and you'll be able to work out what I'm doing when you can see what I'm drawing. Okay, lovely, great start. Okay, so you can see that I'm completely finished now. I spent a little bit of time on it. It was quite relaxing because it wasn't having to think about anything too tricky, just staying kind of around the circles and doing it neatly so that it looks really effective like it does right now. Now you might have different shapes to mine, and that's absolutely fine. I'd love to see different variations on this, so just use your imagination and how you feel you want to doodle. The circles look really nice for me. I'm happy with them. Again, you'll be able to see that they're not perfect circles, and that's half the beauty of this project, that they're not all the same and then they're not attempting to be perfect. You don't want to draw around anything. You know, sometimes we say, oh, if you're going to draw a circle, draw around something. But on this, you don't want to. You just want to do it freehand because it gives a much nicer feel. So at this point, what you will be able to see is that there are little lines here and there, and it doesn't matter, okay? Because what you're going to do at this point, once you've finished, you're going to rub out any of the little lines that you can see that you didn't quite get right. And obviously that's the benefit of having the rubber, because we want to be able to edit our artwork. That's the point. Okay, so don't worry about those little extra lines that you may or may not have had. I think that the colouring there, although it was speeded up, I think that it only took me about 15 minutes. Okay, and I know that I'm a little bit quicker at colouring perhaps than you guys are, but it didn't take too long. So it might be that you get it to this stage and then you decide you want to go out and play in the garden, or you're going to do some of your other schoolwork that you might want to do, or that you're doing something like playing a board game or something with your family, or you want to go on Minecraft or whatever. So you can always come back to this. Okay, that's the benefit of these two projects. You can just work on them over a period of time, and that's kind of what mindfulness is, where we're trying to relax our mind and just not put too much pressure on ourselves to finish something and get it done straight away, because to be honest, that's not always how our artists work on their projects. When I was doing real gallery artwork, the projects would take me a long time. I might be working on an idea or a drawing for, a few months and things. So artists don't just do this straight off the bat. Some people do, because obviously their art style is different. But if you want to keep coming back to it, the idea is that it will kind of be a project that you can keep returning to quite easily. Right. So once you've got all of the little sections rubbed out, if there are any that you want to neaten up, say this one here, I want to neaten it up, you can do that with your Sharpie or your felt pen that you're using. Okay, and this one here, I might want to just neaten that one up a little bit, and I've got to just press down a little bit harder with my Sharpie there, because I think I pressed a little bit lightly, because I wasn't sure where the edge of the paper was there. Okay, so if there's any little corrections that you might want to make, or little white areas that you've missed, okay, now's the time to do it. And we all have those, so that's why I'm editing as I go there. Okay, and it's nice for you to see that I edit, because obviously it helps you to feel confident when editing your own artwork, and it is really important to learn how to do it. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that now at this point. I'm thinking that most of my shapes or circles, as they are on mine, are looking pretty neat and pretty good. So at this point, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start to show you about the colouring, or how to do the colouring. Now, this is just an idea of what I thought might be a really nice mindfulness exercise, and lots of you will have seen, if you've been to my clubs, that we've done Zentangles lots of times, and they are relaxing because you're colouring a pattern and your mind doesn't need to focus like it would if you were drawing a sloth or a dragon, or one of the more complicated tutorials that I've done with you. And that's why we're doing this, because we want it to just be relaxing and to just let your mind wander and just doodle as you go. Okay, so you might remember that at the start I showed you this sheet that you can get. Okay, so I'm just going to put it on there just for a little bit so that you can look a little bit closely at the kind of designs you might do, and I'll just talk you through them so you can see. So if we start on this side here, you've got just lovely bands or stripes, you've got some stars, some little square spirals, just some little arrows there, a checkerboard kind of effect. I like this one with the dots and then the little dots around it, very nice. These are a little bit more complicated. Now, you might not do this for every one, but you might decide you want to try something like this one with the arches and the small dots. You might want to try that, just in one. You don't need to do it all in each, each one doesn't need to be as complicated as that. Some of them could be as simple as that one. This is actually like what we've created over here, isn't it? Again, these ones are really nice because they actually show in the circles what you could do. So it doesn't need to be quite as tight as this. We're going for a colour, and this is obviously just to give you some ideas. And then this one, really nice, just simple straight lines crisscrossing over. But actually, if you do that in rainbow colours, it could look really effective, or even just one colour or two colours would look really effective. Here, some of you might have had a try of these when you've done if you've done the scraper board activity with me, you might have had a go with these nice kind of got concentric arcs. They're quite a good one to do. You could just do some little spirals, gently coming in. Again, just straight lines on this one, some random kind of squarey, kind of oblongy shapes there. This one's nice, it almost looks like a little shallot on that one. Lots of ease or wiggly lines, zigzags, great. What I would say is, usually what I say when we're doing Zentangles is, don't put things in maybe like, smiley faces and that kind of thing. But you could put in hearts, you could do that kind of thing. If you're doing a circle, you can make one of them a smiley face. I don't mind that. This is totally up to you. So just use whatever you kind of feel like doing, really. That's what I'm trying to say. So this will be available for you to have a little download if you want to, and you can print it out. Or, as I say, you could just pause the video here and have this on it while you're doing your actual artwork. So hopefully I've got it in a position where you can see all of them. okay? And you could just pause it and then you could use it like that. So either way it would work. You don't have to print it out, okay? But it is there if you did want to. Right, so I'm going to move that out of the way, and I'm going to use that as a little bit as inspiration for mine, okay? And we're just going to go on to do the colouring. Now, I showed you before that I was going to use the rainbow colours. That was just because that's how I felt today. You use whatever colours you like, your favourite ones, the ones that you love. It might be you want to use your sparkliest gel pen, fine, whatever colours you like. And if this is being done in pencil crayon or just straight felt tips, okay, even if you just colour these circles different colours, okay, it'll look fantastic because of the black background. You might want to do a mixture of what I'm going to do and like a doodle, and then you might want to do a mixture of just solid colours, or you might want to blend the colours together if you're using crayons or something, or half the shapes and colour them in. Okay, this is totally up to you. This is just basically you're going to fill these shapes with whatever you like. Okay, so I've just got a selection of colours. I haven't decided how I'm going to do it yet because that's the idea. Okay, so you'll just see it evolve as we go. So I'm probably going to start with red, and I'm probably going to start up at this corner, and then I might come down in a rainbow. Maybe I might decide that I'm just going to dot around with the colours. Okay, so if I take my red to start with, okay, and my pens are quite fine. Yours might not be as fine as mine, and that's okay. You can do this with a you know, a normal felt tip too if you haven't got gel pens or ones like I've got. They are very nice. I'm really enjoying using them. Okay, so I'm just going to start up at the top, but you can start wherever you like. Okay, so I'm going to do this big one first, and I am going to do that design that I really liked on the sheet, the one with the spots and then the little dots around the outside. I am just doing this freehand, straight in with my pen. I'm not drawing it out. Now, if you want to draw it out, you know, you could to try and get it right, but I don't think you need to do that. I think that you can probably just have a go straight in with your colours. Okay, so again, don't worry if your little pattern goes outside of the circle, okay, or your shape. That's absolutely fine. That's what we want, in fact. And then I'm going to put the little dots around the edge of each circle to create that pattern that we looked at on the sheet. Okay, so I'm just going to go in just like that. And this is kind of just a time where I know I'm talking at the moment, but in a minute when I stop the video, I'm just going to be doing this quietly. And you know, you could have some music on while you do this. You can do it just completely in silence. You could do it outside while you're looking at the view. And as I say, you can come back to this. You don't have to do it all in one, you know, sitting. It's not about that this time. Okay, so some of the other ones where I've done, I want you to concentrate and you need to kind of work hard to think about how you're doing things and all of those things. But with this, it's not. It's about just quietening those little voices that might be going on in your head. And it's just about taking, you know, a little bit of time out just to do. And even if you just did like this section, you know, with your pattern, and then you decided that you'd had enough for that day, but it had relaxed your mind and quieted down your thoughts, then that's what this is about. Okay, so hopefully you can see my first one. I'm going to do the arcs in this one, I think. I'm just going to go right across my little circle like so. And then I might do a little set of arrows in this one. Okay, and I'm just making up the patterns kind of as I go along, really. I'm not worrying about my patterns. Now, when we made the square, if you remember, we cut off a piece of paper like this, didn't we? So at this point, you know, if you want to practice a doodle, because I know some of you kind of think, oh, I don't want to put it straight on. Well, you could always practice it on here. You could draw yourself, you know, a little circle and then practice in that, and then transfer it across, because sometimes you want to practice just before you have a go, and that's fine, you can do that. Okay, so I might try a spiral one in this one. So I'm going to make my patterns close together, and that's what you'll notice as I'm filling in the circles. Okay, I'm making sure, you can see on that one how tight my spirals are. They're filling the whole space, so they're not just big, you know, and trying to get as few in. You want to try and get as many in as you can, actually. Right, so I'm going to do the lines going everywhere now on this one. So I'm just going to put them in, but I'm making it nice and tight, okay, so that you can clearly see the colour. And I might just do these sections in red, and then I might go in a band. I think that is what I'm going to do. I've decided. So you just decide however you want. Random, not random, pattern, no pattern, doesn't matter. It's totally up to you how you decide to fill these shapes that you've made. And remember, yours might not be circles like mine. Okay, yours could be paint splats, they could be squares, they could be triangles, they could just be abstract shapes. They don't need to be anything, you know, recognizable like a triangle or a square. You can do something completely different if you want. Okay, and obviously you can repeat the patterns. If you find one you like, you can repeat it. Okay, you don't have to do a new pattern in each one. Okay, but if you are going to repeat a pattern, you might just want to think about not putting them too near each other. Okay, or you might decide that you're going to go a whole pattern and the same pattern's going to go all the way along. This is, as I say, completely up to you and how you approach it. The only thing that I would suggest when you're doing it is just keeping all the patterns tight. Now that hasn't taken me very long to do that. Okay, so it looks complicated when it's finished, but obviously it doesn't take too long because you're not having to draw anything in or anything like that. You're just filling in each shape one at a time, and the Zentangles themselves are actually quite simple. They're not terribly complicated, and that's part of the kind of the mindfulness, because we want to just be simple. We don't want to have to be worrying about the complexity of the designs. Okay, we want to just be able to relax our mind. So by doing simple patterns that we don't really have to think about almost, you know, at least for some of them, can create a nice, relaxing kind of atmosphere for you to work in. Okay, so I'm going to do some stripes on that one. And my last one, what shall I do on here? It's a small one, so I might just fill it with little tiny circles in there like that. Okay, so you can see that I've started my red pattern there, and I'm going to continue on. So I'm probably going to use orange next, yellow, and work my way through the rainbow as I come down. Okay, but your approach to this can be however you like. I don't really mind how you fill the circles or the shapes. I don't mind. Colour them, you know, with rainbows inside. I don't mind. It's totally up to you. It's your imagination. So what I'm going to do is, at this point, I'll stop the video. I'm going to work on it. That didn't take me very long, and I'll let you know how long it took me to create my final piece, and hopefully be able to see the process and see the patterns that I'm choosing and see how the piece develops as the video speeds through. Okay. see I've finished my fantastic mindfulness bubble Zentangle creation, and I'm really pleased with it. I've used the rainbow colours going across, so red through to orange and so on all the way down, and I have included a little bit of pink at the bottom because I needed to fill that last space. You can see if you look really carefully that all my patterns are really different. I used the sheet to help me, and I used my imagination as well. I think that these can be really, really personal, and what I noticed the most about actually doing this project was I was really relaxed while I was doing it, and I was calm and I was quiet, and I was able just to let my mind just wander, which was really nice, and I enjoyed it a lot. And it probably took me about 40 minutes, so not actually that long, not as long as I thought it might. Okay, and like I said, you can do this and then come back to it, do a little bit and then come back to it, because this is one of those projects that's ongoing, and it looks fantastic when you finish it. You'll be really proud when you finish it, I'm sure. And it's all about just expressing yourself and letting your mind just wander and plow through all those ideas that you're thinking about. Okay, so I hope that you've really enjoyed these two tutorials this time. I tried to do two because I thought that you might like to choose one or do both and just take your time doing them. So I hope you've enjoyed the sessions, and I will see you on the next Art4 video. Well done.